Here I am, a minute early. Interesting. Sorry, I'm just playing with things on here. So, sorry. Jax West from Stephen Avery Project, MAM Gossip, and Justice with Jax. I wanted to go live today to talk about the latest in Stephen's case. Um, I just keep thinking about it since reading Kathleen Zellner's latest filing. So, and John Farrick, who we've done a couple lives here with before on, and is this the new one? Who's got anniversary edition of his book Wrecking Crew, which I think is the best book written about this case. Um, there's the original one, and then this one that's been updated that you can get on Amazon. John Farrick, Wrecking Crew. So John Farrick is a journalist, and at the time of when Making a Murderer first came out, he worked for a news outlet in Wisconsin. He's now down here in Illinois, not far from me. But as I said, he's written the best book on the case. And no, I'm not. My book, Wrongfully Abused, is about my experience with the case, not the case itself. So it's not me dogging my book by saying this is the best one, because this is the best book on the case. Oops, I'm not. Okay, here we go. There we go. Hi, Bryce. I'm like, where are people's comments? So John Farrick is, even though he's down here, when something happens in Stephen's case, he writes an article on it. And he has a really good relationship with Kathleen Zellner. So he gets some insights and such into the case because Kathleen talks to him directly. So it was really funny yesterday because John Farrick messaged me the link to his article. And he's like, just done 15 minutes ago. Here it is. And so every time I get something like that, I post it first. You know, I hadn't read it. So I just posted the link because I want to get the information to y'all as soon as possible. So I posted the link. And then John said to me, read it. I think you're really going to like it. And I'm like, I'm reading it now. And it's really, really good. That I think it puts in plain English what's been wrong in the courts in Stephen's case and what the simple evidence is. Um, so I wanted to go live today because I'm going to read the article so I can discuss as we go. And then there was also somebody who made a comment. Um, I don't recall where it was. I've responded on her comment too. I don't know if she made it here on Stephen Avery Project, the public page, or in the group, or in MAM Gossip, but um, that's just been staying in my mind too. So we'll get to that. Um, so all right, the link. Oh, I should post the link to the article. So anybody, if you haven't read it or seen it, there's the article that it is posted here on Stephen Avery Project and all our other pages. So it says, it's titled, Zellner Exposes Judge Sutkowitz's Errors in Stephen Avery Case. And then it says Farrick, John Farrick's last name. Angela Suckowitz mysteriously removed herself from Stephen Avery's case weeks after issuing a mistake-riddled ruling to prevent a new trial. Hello, Shane. All right. I love the way that John Farrick writes. Um, and just the way he says things, that to me it's just putting it out very bluntly. 2024 is now shaping up to become the biggest year for Stephen Avery, Wisconsin's wrongfully convicted man who was later arrested for murdering auto trader photographer Teresa Halbach just days before retired longtime Manitowoc County Sheriff Tom Kosurik was to testify in Avery's $36 million civil lawsuit against the sheriff in Manitowoc. On Friday, the most well-known and respected wrongful conviction lawyer in the United States, Kathleen Zellner, took to the offense, filing her 57-page post-conviction appeal with the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. Oh, and let me add too, all right, so John Farrick sent me the link to this. This is where I guess I sound like a douchebag name dropper, but whatever. I just thought this was funny. So he sent me the link, blah, 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 and then like 15-20 minutes after that, I got an email from Kathleen with the link. And so that I responded to her saying, John Farrick beat you to it. He sent it to me like 15 minutes ago, and it's posted on all of my pages. And then she responded with the praying emoji. So let us pray. All right, back to John Farrick's article in the Patch. Weird things happened in Avery's case after longtime Sheboygan County Judge Angela Suckowitz issued her ruling in August, intending to make sure that Avery remained in the Wisconsin prison system for the rest of his life. Stephen Avery, an innocent man, continues to fight for his life in his latest appeal, alleging a mountain of factual and legal errors by his former judge. Having the victim's stolen vehicle with all the forensic evidence used to frame Stephen in it means nothing so far. Read brief. And so that is a, do you still call it a tweet? Or is it an X or whatever? But so that's from the formerly known as Twitter. I deleted all my Twitter pages, so I don't go on Twitter anymore. So that's why I haven't posted screenshots of what Kathleen has tweeted, X'd, whatever. So in the future, if those of you who are still on that platform want to take a screenshot, and you can either message it here on Stephen Avery Project, or you can email it to me at officialstephenaveryproject@gmail.com or justicewithjax@gmail.com. I'll then share it. But I don't have access to that anymore. I'm so over Twitter. Okay, back to the article. As many people in Wisconsin already know based on previous coverage from Gannett, Wisconsin media, Suckowitz has been long regarded as a mediocre to lousy judge, even for Wisconsin standards. But her performance from August may have been so dreadful that others in power urged her to step down and relinquish any handling of Avery's case going forward. Ooh, I'm just so loving that tea. The judge's mistakes are so plainly obvious to anybody familiar with the Emmy Award-winning docuseries on Netflix, Making a Murderer, that one has to wonder why Judge Suckowitz made the decision to insert so many incorrect facts into her August ruling that went against Avery. Perhaps she did this because she knew she was under such intense and enormous pressure from longtime friends of hers, people like Ken Kratz and Jerry Poggle of the Calumet County Sheriff's Office, and other state politicians who work in Madison. See, this is why, again, I love John Farrick's writing. He's just going right for it. Perhaps she made the August ruling mindful of Wisconsin's elites, people affiliated with Wisconsin's insurance companies that could be forced to shell out gobs of money in the event that someone else is exposed as being the true killer of Teresa Halbach. Stephen Avery has insisted since November 2005 that he is innocent and had nothing to do with Halbach's disappearance after she visited his family's salvage yard business for another routine photo assignment. On the other hand, Avery's nephew, Bobby Dassey, was gazing at her from the distance, watching her every move from behind a window inside his mother Barb's house, also along Avery Road. That paragraph and the post somebody made on one of our articles or whatever has just really got me thinking about, and what the person had posted was something like, the thing that sticks out to her is Bobby watching. Bobby is watching. Bobby is watching her. Bobby is watching her. And yeah, that is like this lightning bolt revelation to me on why is Bobby watching her? She's been there numerous times before. He knew she was coming, so it's not like, what's a stranger doing outside taking pictures of my mom's car? He knew in advance she was going there because Barb made the boys clean out the car ahead of time, and the boys were mad because they wanted to keep that van for themselves. So they knew she was coming ahead of time. She's been there several times before. So why is Bobby taking the time to look at her? Why would he care? Why would he notice her? So why is he watching her? That says a lot to me. It's totally stalker creepy vibes. All right, back to John Farrick's article on the patch. After issuing her mistake-riddled ruling in August, Judge Suckowitz did something you never see a judge do. She resigned from the Avery case. She informed the Wisconsin judicial system that she was through with the Avery case. Quote, when dealing with states as high as a defendant's liberty, third-party perpetrator evidence walks a bit of a tightrope, unquote, Zellner argued in Friday's post-conviction appeal. Quote, without regard for Mr. Avery's liberty, even after he has brought forth strong new evidence connecting a third party to Ms. Halbach's murder, the circuit court has denied Mr. Avery the opportunity for an evidentiary hearing. Mr. Avery now appeals the circuit court's denial of his amended third post-conviction motion because this circuit court's opinion is so legally and factually flawed that it does not even consider whether Mr. Avery has alleged sufficient facts to warrant an evidentiary hearing. Instead, the circuit court erroneously interprets State v. Denny as requiring conclusive proof of motive to satisfy the materiality requirement of State v. Edmonds and as requiring the alleged third-party suspect to have the necessary skills to manipulate evidence in a manner that would implicate the defendant to satisfy the opportunity prong of Denny. The circuit court's decision denying Mr. Avery an evidentiary hearing on his new evidence of Bobby Dassey's possession of Ms. Halbach's vehicle is based on an irrational premise, quote, that Bobby could have been in possession of the car that night to help hide evidence to protect the two individuals directly linked by forensic evidence to this murder and convicted of the crime, unquote. According to Zellner, here are the 6 major errors committed by Judge Suckowitz when it came to messing up the basic facts of the Halbach murder trial in her August post-conviction ruling. And I had copied and pasted these 6 things and shared it as a comment when I had posted the article because, I mean, this is just everything all here, right in front of you. Number 1, Judge Sudkowitz used Brendan Dassey's confession against Stephen Avery, even though the confession was inadmissible in Avery's trial, and Avery's trial judge, Patrick Willis of Manitowoc, said it was unreliable and was contradicted by the evidence. So, one, there's no Brendan in Stephen's case. They didn't bring him up because at that point now, Brendan had gone back on everything he was coerced to say, and he wasn't going to lie anymore. So, since they couldn't force Brendan to testify against Stephen and say all these lies, they now did not use Brendan at all. In Stephen's case, Stephen is convicted of murdering Teresa Halbach in a different way than Brendan is. Same case, two guys, different ways. Hello, Cassandra. Door County. I hope you're staying warm, Cassandra. It's what's the temp? Jeff, what's the temperature here right now? I heard my husband downstairs. Weather. What is the temperature here right now? -11 is what it is right now in Chicagoland. Holy Nikes, it's cold. So no Brendan in Stephen's case. So Judge Sudkowitz, Judge Flowers, is using Brendan Dassey's coerced confession that wasn't even in Stephen's case. It's not evidence in Stephen's case as a reason to deny him. Southern Ontario. How cold is it in Ontario? Just curious if we're colder than you now, Ashley. Number 2, Judge Sudkowitz thought forensic evidence connected Brendan Dassey to the crime. It did not. They have nothing on Brendan but his forced confession. Chanel from Cape Town, South Africa. Yeah, that's got to be warm. There's no evidence for Brendan other than his confession. And Steve in England. I'm loving these people all around the world today. And it just shows the power of this case, too, that we have so many people from every single spot on the globe. Lily from Madison. I do not know how Steven's dad is doing. I don't have any contact with the family. I am not liked by the Avery family. Gerald from Alberta. Bronson says Florida is awesome right now while y'all are freezing. I went to New Orleans the week between Christmas and New Year's. Never been there before, and I was freezing there. And I checked the weather before we went, and it said it was going to be 55, 60 degrees. And 55, 60 is beautiful to me, and I was freezing. But locals told me it was due to the humidity, that it's different. So that's why I was so cold. Rachel from Manchester, UK. Renee says, is Stephen going to get free now? Knock on wood. Hopefully he's going to get back into court. We don't know. We've got to wait on it. All right, let me go back to... All right, now we're on number 3. Judge Sudkowitz believed Halbach's bones were in Avery's burn barrel. They were in Bobby Dassey's burn barrel. Lily, the family doesn't like me because I call out the family for the nasty things they have done to both Stephen and Brendan. Just because they are blood related to Stephen and Brendan doesn't mean that they are good for them. And so I call them out. And the only people that have been 100% behind Stephen and supported Stephen the whole time from that family are his parents and his cousin Kim Ducat. That's it. So, okay, and number 3, that's an important thing that even convicting a murderer. That when I went live to read the filing the other day, somebody wanted to argue with me about convicting a murderer. And I'm not going to argue with people, but, well, I will argue with people, but Stephen Avery Project is not supposed to be a place where we argue. Um, but they don't show you that everything is trying to make it look like everything was on Steven's property, and it wasn't. It was in Bobby's burn barrel that's by the Dassey house. Number 4, Judge Suckowitz believed Bobby Dassey pushed the RAV4 onto the Avery property to help Mr. Avery, help is in all capitals, help Mr. Avery hide evidence, even though it actually resulted in all the evidence being discovered. Quote, in the circuit court's nonsensical conclusion, because these actions could be seen as an effort by Bobby to help Mr. Avery, he cannot be considered a valid third-party Denny suspect, unquote, Zellner argued in Friday's filing. Quote, the circuit court failed to explain why if Bobby was simply lending a helping hand to his homicidal uncle, he would then become the state's star witness against Mr. Avery, unquote. That's huge too. If Judge Flowers is going to say, okay, like it's factual, that Bobby was pushing that car back to Avery Salvage, how is that a benefit to Stephen? How does that help Stephen at all? And then wouldn't Stephen say something, anything then, when Bobby is the star witness against him? That Bobby was a part of the whole thing? Because here's the thing about Stephen. He says what he does. When you confront him on something, like when he chased his cousin off the road, he then admits it. People will say, "Oh no, he didn't," because when cops first came to his house, he was trying to pretend this or the other. Well, yeah, of course, yeah. You did something wrong. First, you're gonna try and cover it. But then when there's no way out of it, it happened, they know, he admits to it. And in all these years that he has been incarcerated for the Teresa Halbach case, his story always stays the same. Is always consistent. He says the same things. Why? Because it's the truth. It is easy to remember the truth. It is hard to remember a lie. That's why Brendan Dassey's story changed and changed and changed. And Fackbender and Liegert, their narrative kept changing when they found different evidence. They didn't find that bullet until February 28th. So then on March 1st, they have to bring Brendan back in for questioning and get him to say she was shot. There was no she was shot until then, until the magic bullet with Teresa Halbach's chapstick on it. So Judge Flowers is stating as fact Bobby Dassey was pushing the RAV4 back onto Avery property. But then nothing's done about Bobby. Nobody's even going and questioning. Why wouldn't you then, if you're saying this is factual, that Bobby Dassey did this, why wouldn't this be brought back into court? Because then Bobby is an accessory. Even if you want to say it's still Stephen. Bobby did something on the case. Number 5. Judge Suckowitz said we had to demonstrate with absolute certainty that Bobby made all of the porn searches. She wanted to know if we had performed psychological testing on Bobby Dassey, like we could force him to be examined. Why desperately trying so hard to say that Bobby, who it's obvious is the only person at home when those searches are made, did not make those searches? No, Chanel, Bobby, we haven't heard from him at all about pushing the RAV back onto the property. So Bobby has not admitted anything. But so why is it Kathleen Zellner's problem to force something out of Bobby? Shouldn't law enforcement, period, want to be talking to this guy? Don't they want to protect the citizens of Manitowoc County? Number 6. Judge Suckowitz says we had to demonstrate that Bobby Dassey had the scientific expertise to plant the evidence against Mr. Avery. Wisconsin has no such requirement, and it wouldn't have taken any expertise to plant the evidence. Avery's blood could have been removed with a wet rag from Avery's sink and dripped in the vehicle. The electronic devices were burned in the Dassey burn barrel and put in Avery's burn barrel. The bullet could have been from the many bullets in Avery's garage. The bullet could have been rubbed in Halbach's blood or touched her skin before she was burned. We point out that Bobby was a skilled hunter and had been stalking, hunting, burning, and dismembering game for many years while Mr. Avery was locked up for a crime he did not commit. Unquote. 1 mistake, 2 mistakes, 3 mistakes, 4, 5 mistakes, 6 mistakes. Yikes. Now that Judge Suckowitz's colossal volume of errors on Avery's appeal have slowed the legal process for Zellner and Stephen Avery even more, someone else in the Wisconsin judicial system will be required to exterminate the foul smell of horse manure and cow dung coming from the halls of the Sheboygan courthouse where Judge Suckowitz's chambers and courtroom are located. It would have been one thing for Suckowitz to issue an eloquent and well-researched legal opinion justifying her reasons for preventing Avery from getting a second trial, but that's not what happened in August. And on Friday, Zellner exposed the questionable judge to all the rest of America's lawyers and judges to read for themselves. And now that Judge Suckowitz has mysteriously taken herself off of handling Avery's case, some other judge, a newbie to the Manitowoc bench named Anthony Lambrecht, is lined up for the task of trying to bring respect and dignity back to the Wisconsin's judiciary surrounding the world-watched events of the Stephen Avery case. Meanwhile, the world waits to see what the Wisconsin Court of Appeals will do. Zellner has just reminded the court of all the errors made by Suckowitz in her August ruling. Errors that, in essence, allowed Judge Suckowitz to avoid focusing on the real legal issue staring her in the face, the emergence of Thomas Sawinski, the Gannett, Wisconsin media newspaper carrier who came forward to testify that he saw Bobby Dassey working with someone else who was not Stephen Avery or Brendan Dassey, pushing the RAV4 belonging to Teresa Halbach. The middle-of-the-night sighting by the newspaper delivery carrier happened only 6 hours before Halbach's vehicle was found on the back perimeter of the Avery salvage yard property on November 5, 2005. That single event launched Manitowoc County's quest to target Stephen Avery for Halbach's disappearance and death. It helped obliterate Avery's $36 million federal lawsuit against Sheriff Kosurik just a few days before Kasurik was scheduled to give his videotaped lawsuit deposition for framing Avery in the August 1985 Lake Michigan shoreline rape. No, no, it's attempted rape. I'm correcting that. She was not raped. It was an attempted rape of the prominent Manitowoc businesswoman. The crime the police knew was committed by predator Gregory Allen. Quote, the Sawinski evidence is additionally material because it completely calls into question the reliability of the state's key witness, Bobby's testimony, which allowed the state to argue that Mr. Avery had exclusive control of Ms. Halbach and her vehicle, which contained all of the forensic evidence, and that this evidence was not tainted by any third party. Unquote, Zellner argued in Friday's appeal to the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. Quote, during its closing argument, the state emphasized the importance of Bobby's testimony and vouched for his credibility. Clearly, by Bobby possessing the Halbach vehicle, there is a reasonable likelihood it would have affected the judgment of the jury in that Bobby would have emerged as a much more likely suspect in the murder of Ms. Halbach than his recently released, wrongfully convicted uncle. Contrary to the state's representations to the jury, Bobby was biased and deserved no credit for his fabricated testimony, unquote, Zellner emphasized to the Wisconsin Appeals Court in Friday's ruling. And that is the end of Farrick's article in the patch that we have shared on the page, and I've shared it in here as well. And again, a plug for his book, which is the best. And this is a 5-year anniversary edition available on Amazon, Wrecking Crew, where there is an interview. It was a phone call that Kathleen Zellner was having with Stephen Avery, and John Farrick was with Kathleen listening on speaker. So that discussion between Kathleen and Stephen is in this book. So I highly recommend getting John Farrick's book. All the rest of the books about the case, garbage. This, good book. Get Wrecking Crew. Shane says, I wonder how Barbara feels about this. I have such a love-hate relationship with Barb. I'll show our Let's Slap Barb stickers that there's many people that always just want to slap Barb. Once upon a time, I was friends with Barb. I've been to her home. We did a live together in her house when it was call her. So I did a live with Barb and Scott and Pete Dassey years ago. I firmly believe Barb loves all of her sons to the best of her ability. I think she just keeps doing the no, I don't want to know. Barb also has a low IQ and not the brightest bulb. So like when you see her in Making a Murderer or, in interviews and such, it's like, Brendan says he did it. Brendan says he didn't. Brendan says he did it. Brendan says he didn't. And Barb just really doesn't question it very much. It's just like, Brendan says he did it. Now she thinks he did it. And then he says he didn't. And then she's like, he didn't. And then with how quickly Barb then marries Scott, who she started her relationship with him while she was still married to Tom Yonda, and then is right away getting into this relationship with Scott, or this marriage with Scott, and they're able to buy a house, and all of Scott's debts mysteriously disappeared because Scott is somebody who, on the regular, gets hurt at work and is then off like on workman's comp or unemployment stuff. And then he's taken to court on debts that he's then ordered to pay back. And around the time of this case, this stuff is paid off and they're able to get a mortgage. Barb had been arrested for pot, and that disappeared. Wasn't Barb's pot. It was either Scott or Bobby's pot. They were both selling it. Yeah, Bryce, that house that looks down to where the Rav was spotted. You can see Barb and Scott's backyard from the turnaround. Bryce was with me on my last trip up to Manitowoc on November 5th. So Bryce can also tell you how close all that stuff is, where that car had been left, and then where the Senex station is near that as well. That the one witness reported to Andy Colborn that that car's just down the road here at the turnaround. So I feel bad for Barb, and then I don't. I think she wants to believe in the innocence of all her boys. Um, but I'm sorry when the evidence like this is completely pointing at Bobby, and she knows herself because she's the one that posted in her closed Facebook group that Bobby told her that he saw her leave. So totally contradicting his testimony there. He saw her leave. Yet Barb's not questioning anything. Why did Scott, right after this happened, why was he trying to sell Bobby's 22 at work? The same 22 that Raleigh Johnson had that was hanging over Stephen's bed. Why was he trying to sell that? And Barb doesn't question it. I'm sorry that Barb has a son who murdered an innocent woman. But to let Brendan take the fall for this and lose his life, that he didn't get to graduate high school, go to a school dance, get his driver's license. Brendan is in his 30s now. But his mindset is still of a 14-year-old boy. And yes, I know he was 16 at the time, but he's like 14 years old mentally. At least the last time I talked to him. Last time I've talked to Brendan was 2016. Barb put an end to that, didn't want Brendan talking to me anymore. But anytime I would talk to Brendan on the phone, we're talking about Pokemon, video games, all this really childish stuff. Because Brendan's like frozen in time. And then for Stephen, I haven't talked to him. Last time I talked to him was he had called me a couple weeks after his mom died. But for Stephen, a thing he talks about other than the case is just how he wants to be in love and have a family. That was stolen from him. stolen from him back from the Penny Bernstein case. He had newborn twin boys that he didn't get to see grow up. And then he's got two daughters. All that was taken from him. Stephen just wants to be in love, and he wanted to be with his mom and his dad. And now he has lost any chance of being reunited with his mother on Earth. Not only can he not be reunited with his mother, the last year of her life, his family took her from him. Barb, Carla, Chuck, Earl, Kayla. They all worked to put Dolores in a home and try to block Stephen from having any contact with her. And then they made threats of, once Stephen had found which home she was in, and he would try to call his mom, that they were going to remove her from that home and put her in another one. They went to court to try to keep Stephen from being able to contact his mom. That's what they did the last year of Dolores' life. So when I'm asked about, the family, and that the family doesn't like me, it's because I can't just let that stuff go. And when Stephen called me after his mom died, see, Stephen knows I am the only person out here on these platforms that talk about the case that, like John Farrick in his article, I'm going to tell it like it is. I am not going to worship Avery family members just because they are related to Stephen. And so Stephen knew I would put the information out there. He wanted people to know, because one of the things that his family did when Dolores died is they had GoFundMes. Again, all these GoFundMes over the years that they were trying to get money from supporters to bury Dolores. And so what Stephen told me, and he wanted me to put out there on Stephen Avery Project, is his father already paid for all of that. So many people plan ahead for when they die and don't want to be that burden on their family. So Alan Avery had already purchased plots for him and his wife and had paid in advance for a service. There was no money needed for Dolores' services. Yet this family was out there trying to collect that money. And many people out there with YouTube channels or, their own Facebook pages or whatever, they're not going to say anything about that because they don't want to go against the family. I will. What the family has done is wrong. And you took Dolores away the last year of her life from Stephen. An excuse will be that she had dementia and that she didn't know who Stephen was. You don't know what is going on in the person's head. And it's also not just for Dolores. It is also for Stephen. So if Dolores is in not of sound mind, that, she doesn't even understand what a phone is or how to use a phone, you could put it on speaker and just let Stephen talk. That could have soothed Dolores somewhere inside her if she's trapped, if her mind is trapped inside of her body and that she can't communicate um what she's thinking or feeling. But you took that away from Stephen and Dolores, and they should be ashamed of themselves. But they're not. They keep doubling down. How many of the family was on that stupid convicting a murderer? Earl and Kayla were. What does Paula say? Hey, Paula. I think that Barb was told or convinced by Scott that Brendan should take the fall and take the attention off Bobby and Scott because he was a minor and he would only serve until he was 21, and his record as a minor would be sealed once he became an adult. That is something that is in my mind as well. That Brendan would be the perfect fall guy because he was a minor, and also his um being on the spectrum, being a low IQ, whatever you want to say. So I think there may be some of that in this as well. And if Barb truly sacrificed Brendan, that's so unbelievably sad. Because also, if Bobby killed Teresa, who says he hasn't done it again? And he has children. Who says he's not abusing those kids? Something's wrong with him. It's just frightening that he's been able to be free all this time. And if you haven't seen the pictures I posted on Stephen Avery Project, when Bryce and I and my husband went up there on November 5th and we went to Bobby's house, and just the way he was walking towards the car, I had been Facebook living everything when we were driving around the area, but at Bobby's house I have no service. It drops. So then I just snapped a couple pictures. I thought about it, it was just a spur of the moment thing. And so I thought about letting him get all the way to the car because, oh my God, what kind of story would that be? And what would he say? But then I decided, no, just go. And I regret it. We should have stayed there and seen what Bobby would say. Bryce says, remember the other cases that have a sketch of someone who looks an awful like Bobby? Mm-hmm. So we don't know if Bobby has hurt other women. And then Bobby was able to buy a house. Bryce has seen it now. It's a lot of land. Um, you know, multiple outbuildings and you know, um, where did Bobby get the money to buy a house? Bobby bought a house, Barb bought a house. They're, what is it, 5 minutes apart? 5, 10 minutes? So Scott and Bobby live really close to each other. Bryce says with a lot of cover for more crime because it's trees galore there. You know, we had to be parked right at the end of, and it's a really long driveway to the house. So we had to be parked right at the end of his driveway to be able to even see anything with the way there's so many trees in front of Bobby's house. I'm always hopeful that something will happen in Stephen's case, that at the very least he can get into court. Um, but knowing it's going back to the same judge, I'm hopeful, but not really. Um, and now with this, I am I'm so hopeful he's at least going to get into court. And what did Kathleen say to me? I posted the screenshot. Um, because I always say that um I can't remember, or I'm not a lawyer. I'm not the person that says I'm basically a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, don't so um so after she had sent me the filing, and then I had done the live, we were on for like 2.5 hours. um I then emailed her back and I said, "Thank you so much. Can you tell me how long the state and judge have to respond?" And Kathleen said, "The appellate court will issue a schedule. Typically, the state gets 30 days, but they will ask for more time. We get the last word by filing a reply. A 3-judge panel of appellate judges will make the decision." So, um, I get nervous about the 3-judge thing, because now remember, Brendan had that at the Seventh Circuit of Appeals that's here in Chicago, that I attended his hearings. And so the 3-judge panel went 2-1 in Brendan's favor. But then the state was able to call for an en banc, EN space BANC, and it's pronounced en banc. And so then that means you get all the judges. Um, and so then it was, I think, 7-judge, and they overturned it and ruled against Brendan. So, but I just have to be hopeful for right now, because this is the best we've we we've had in Stephen's case for a while. Yeah, Danny, is it 3 judges until they get a result they don't like? Paula says, if the case goes back to court, do you think the case would be moved out of Manitowoc County? I don't know. It's gone back and forth on that. Um, and again, not a lawyer. Um, I don't know what is in the best interest for Stephen. I personally would not want anything in Manitowoc. Everything feels tainted. But he was, what was the other county? Starts with the C that he went to. Somebody help me with that. What's the other county that starts with the C? Calumet County, right? Calumet County. I mean, so there's bad people. Thank you, Bryce. Um, there's I I don't know where you go in Wisconsin. I mean, and look at how stacked Stephen's jury was against him. There was not one but 2 people affiliated with Manitowoc Sheriff's Department on his jury. Google Carl Wardman. There is a picture. You can Google Carl Wardman, Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, and you will see a picture of a community service vehicle from Manitowoc Sheriff's Department. And there's 2 guys, one the driver's side, one the passenger side, and the door is open. One of those community service officers for Calumet County, or for Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, is Carl Wardman, who is on Stephen's jury. Then let's go even further into Carl Wardman. Picture that is used all the time. I believe Kathleen has it on her website, on her page for Stephen. I've shared it before. It's the picture where you see Stephen being brought out of the courthouse, because you can see like the courthouse behind him. He's in the orange jumpsuit. He is handcuffed and those are in front of him. And on one side there is a female deputy. On the other side is a male deputy. Zoom in and look at that deputy, the male deputy's name tag. Wardman. Carl Wardman's son is who was taking Stephen in and out of court. Why is this man on their jury? He's never going to say anything against Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. Never ever. And then there was another person there on the jury who was married to a deputy. Two people affiliated with Manitowoc Sheriff's Department on his jury. I talked to Jerry Buting in person about this. Funnily enough, it was at one of Brendan's hearings in Chicago. We spoke about it outside after court. And I asked him about that. And he said it's because that jury pool was so stacked, and they're only allowed X amount of strikes to say, nope, we want this person out. They had used them all up on people they thought were even worse. So I have no idea how bad those people were if you've got a guy who's a community service officer and his son is a deputy and somebody who's married to a deputy on the jury. How can it get worse than that? How is that a fair trial? So the best Stephen could have ever gotten was a hung jury, because those people are never going to go against law enforcement, ever. And then there's the, deputies that were in there when the jury's being sequestered. That's like drinking and eating with them. There's so much scuzzy things that happened in Stephen's case. So again, at the end of the day, at the very least, he did not get a fair trial, and there is reasonable doubt. But there is so much evidence to show that this man is innocent. Is he the greatest person who's ever walked the earth? No. Nor am I or you. But he didn't do this. And these witnesses are not people who watched Making a Murderer and are a weirdo that just wants to be connected to this case, and so they make crap up. These are people who came forward back before there was any national attention on this case. And Manitowoc covered it. Do I know what happened to Teresa Halbach? No. I don't think we're ever going to know. But what I do know... Oh, hey, Christopher, I'm just now noticing you. Sorry. But I do know what Ken Kratz, sweaty, sweat, and Calumet County and Manitowoc County, the story that they've put together does not add up. Stephen and Brendan are innocent. I am not one of the people that think that Brendan saw Scott and Bobby do this or somebody else do this. There is no way that Brendan would be able to see a girl be raped, murdered, something done with her body. He would be in like a catatonic state forever, rocking in a corner and crying to himself. He's a sensitive soul. He said some mean things to me, but that's because his mom told him I'm a bad person. Um and I'm not even mad at Brendan for that. Um because to him his mom is his world, just like Dolores was Steven's world. But there's no way Brendan could witness, and definitely no way he could take part. He's not raping anybody. I don't care if Steven's yelling at him and telling him to do it. Brendan would have done what we've already heard he's done previously when he didn't want to go to a family birthday party. He runs. He's a big boy, strong kid. I Steven, you've got to remember too. My picture's not going to do it justice because I did slouch down, so you can't really tell. But Steven's really short. He's a wee little guy. You know, I'm I was going to say I'm 5'7", but this or last year at the doctor I learned I've actually started shrinking now and I'm 5'6" something. But I'm like crouching down with him. He's really short. I want to say he's like 5'3". I don't know. He's a really short guy. Um, Let me see. Do I have a picture of me with Marnie? Another case I work on, Marnie Yang. Marnie is 4'9", and I'm not crouching down in this one. So, Steven's really short. I think Brendan could take him. I'm just saying. Um, so if Brendan were to come across Steven doing something, he would run. You know, the family all goes hunting. Brendan doesn't hunt. Brendan loves animals. He's not going to kill them. So, mm-mm. There's 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 no way. And there's also no way that Brendan all these years now wouldn't have said something to somebody. You know, his parents keep putting him in contact with bad people that Brendan shouldn't be talking to. You know, um, they were like making one girl. So there was some supporter because Barb and Scott have profited a lot off of this case that supporters give them money and gift cards and all this stuff. And so there was this man, I can't remember his name, but he had given Barb a bunch of money. And now, in return, that man was able to fly with his family to Wisconsin and go into the prison and meet Brendan and pose for pictures and such. And they said that that man's daughter at some point was his girlfriend, which is so cruel to do to Brendan because it's not real. And then I'm sure at some point that girl was taken away from Brendan. Just sad. Mm. So now we wait for the state's response, and then Kathleen will have a comeback, and then we'll hear something from court. If I'm able, hold on, sorry. If I'm able to, if I'm told in advance when there's going to be a hearing, um, I will take off of work and I will attend. I will drive up there and go. Um, my boss is really pretty cool. So like I'm off not well, I am off tomorrow because tomorrow is a state holiday here. But next Monday, I am off to go to Marnie Ying's court date. So yeah, my boss is really cool and lets me go. So I will go to Stevens if I'm able to. Um, as soon as there is any filing, as soon as we can get it, I will go live when I can and read it and we will discuss it. If you see that the filing's out and you don't see anything posted here, please send us a message or an email because when I am at work, since I'm chief of staff for a state representative, um, I'm I am on state time paid by the Illinois taxpayers, so I can't be on social media and doing personal stuff. I like run my boss's Facebook page. I can only do that kind of stuff. So I would go live once I am home from work. So send it our way, and then Christopher, the moderator, he posts stuff when I'm not able to. But all right, I am going to close this out for today. Um, one last plug. Oh, that's not the new version. John Ferrick, Wrecking Crew, Demolishing the Case Against Stephen Avery is available on Amazon. So get that. And then there's also my book, Wrongfully Abused, Making an Advocate for Stephen Avery. This is my thoughts on the case and what Stephen's family has done to me in the years that I have been standing up for Stephen and Brendan's innocence. And I do have another book. What is all those noises? I have another book percolating in my head. And maybe one day I will start writing it. Next time I'll go live. It won't be here. Since I'm off work tomorrow, I am going to go live on Justice with Jax and talk about the Gypsy Rose case. So if you care about that case and watch any of those documentaries, I don't know when I'm going live yet because I also have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. So at some point tomorrow, I'll be going live on Justice with Jax on the Gypsy Rose Blanchett case. Marco's saying, what happens if Trump becomes president again? Will Stephen become free? No, because this is not a federal case. It's a state case. Only the governor could free him, the governor of Wisconsin. And he has stated that he will not. So it doesn't matter who the president is. There's nothing the president can do for state cases, only federal. All right, I'm going to go. I'm chilly right now. Oh my God, it's so cold here. So I'm about to go wrap myself up in a blanket and go just watch TV on this cold, yucky Sunday here in Chicagoland. So thank you, everybody. Till next time, investigation continues.